let's talk winding a skein. So if you have never worked from yarn that comes in a skein before, you need to know this. If anyone ever says something along the lines of, what do you wish you had known before you started knitting, then not necessarily right before I started knitting, but very early on, I wish someone had taught me that you cannot knit straight from this. I found out the hard way, so let me stop that terrible event happening to you. You will just get in a complete tangle. It's a nightmare. So what you will do is you'll take your label off. Usually there'll be a label. And then what you want to do is just find the point where the loop is, and you can let it all untwist. Oh, and actually that goes that way. So there we go. That is all then untwisted. And then I'm going to lean in and show you. You can see that it's just tied at a couple of points. There's 3 on this one, I think. Some yarns will only be tied once, some will be tied a few times like this one, and so you need to take those off before you wind it. So I've got this set up. So I've got a really nice fancy pants ball winder that we use in the shop. At home I've got one more like this, which is the plastic one. Although I am thinking about getting one of these for home because they're nice and smooth and they're really good. These are fine, they'll do the job, absolutely fine, particularly if you're not scaling up all that often. Yeah, so that will do you. But if you're scaling up a lot, and you just like having fancy things, which is like me, then yeah, this is a really lovely option. We provide both of these, they're Knit Pro products, really nice. Okay, so the other thing I've got that you might not have, and you do not need any of this is going to be the point of this video, is an umbrella swift. You can also get, I think they're called Amish swifts, that tabletop ones that just sit on the tabletop, whereas this one clamps like that, so you can see clamps onto the table. Yeah, and so you've got this, so it can adjust for different sizes of skeins. Going off the edge of the picture, never mind, you'll get the idea. And so I usually just open it out slightly, it just makes my life slightly easier. And then what you're going to do is put your skein round that. Before I do that, if you do not have this, which I said will make your life easier, you hopefully have got either a chair where you can just loop it round the back to just stop it from all tangling up, or a willing accomplice, see this in the old films, to do that for you. Okay, that just keeps it all from untangling. Or when I went to the music festival, in fact I think there's a video of it online on Instagram, just put it around my knees and wound by hand from there. So as I said, you don't need any of this stuff. This is just nice and makes your life easier. So if you don't have the Swift, use your knees, use someone else's arms, use the back of a chair. And if you do not have a ball winder, then you can also, lots of people prefer this actually, this is a nosed pin, and you just wind it by hand round there, and I'll give you the idea of how that works in a sec. Or you can just do it by hand. So I'm going to use the Swift, as I said, however you've kind of arranged that skein to keep it straight. And then I can just lock that there. And then you'll want to find the ties. So this one actually is nicely looped. Sometimes it's a knot and you just got to carefully, without snipping the actual skein, just snip off that knot and you can pull out there. See, that's completely separate. There'll usually be one, or there should be one, although sometimes they just use scraps for all of them, but yeah, there should be one where it's actually the 2 ends of the skein, so they won't come out like that. There's another one. There we go. So there we go. So that's actually got one extra bit there, and that's the 2 ends. And I usually just tuck one of the ends back under there, otherwise it all kind of gets in the way. Okay, and then I've got one more. I say it's quite good this because they've just done sort of half knot, so you can just pull it, but sometimes you might have to just carefully snip above that there. I'll pull it out and then wiggle that out. There we go, another scrap. So that's the end I've left free. To use the ball winder, and this will be the same for whether you're using the smaller one there or this jumbo one, you will need to just feed it through the guide, which is there, and there'll be a notch in the top of the thingy whatnot, whatever the technical name is. And if the yarn's quite fine, I sometimes sort of just double it over slightly to just make it a bit more secure, and you just wiggle it down in there. This one, and you don't have to worry about this on the other wool winder, but this one has a band that you just need to set up in the groove on the wheel. There we go. You just need to remember to take that off every time so the band doesn't get stretched out. So I've got that hooked up to that. I've got it running through the guide, and I've got it going up to my Swift. If I was going to wind by hand, I'll just take it out. By the way, my Swift is quite creaky. Right, I'll just warn you about that. So what I would do, and I'll just come close again so you can see what I'm doing, is I just get my 2 fingers and just holding the end there, I start to wind the yarn round, and I'm sort of crisscrossing it slightly. And after a few of those, I just slightly move the yarn round like that. There we go. So I try not to swear at you. And then I might go the other way slightly. You see there, it's just sort of crossing. There we go. And then I would move it round again. Don't bring your fingers too close together, because otherwise, because it gets tighter and tighter, you'll end up cutting off your circulation. So I do it like this for a little bit. So now I'm not trying to lean over. That should go a bit quicker. That, move it round a bit. And already it's making my fingers get closer together, but that's fine because we're going to take them out in a sec. And when I've got a kind of decent enough amount that it kind of gets the ball going, I just pop it off my fingers. Then I can just start. So I give myself a bit more yarn. Creaky. There we go. I'm just going to turn that round now. Round. Might not be the neatest way. Once you get going, actually, it should start looking much more ball-like. Around. So doing what I'm doing now on that means you can hold this and keep winding it round and round with it still on this the whole time. And it's just a bit neater and a bit easier. But as I said, if you haven't got any of this stuff, put this round the back of a chair and off you go, just doing it by hand. And what you do is you want to just keep moving your blob around. It's so squeaky. Oh dear. If my dad's watching this, he'll be over in a minute with his WD-40. Okay, and I'm going to just turn it around again. And obviously as your blob gets bigger, it gets easier. There we go. That way. There we go. I'm just changing direction all the time. Again and again. This is like potentially quite a weird and boring video. This is taking me ages and my Swift keeps creaking. Right, okay, so, still a little bit messy, but hopefully you can see that is starting to form into a ball. So as I said, you just keep turning and you just keep changing direction, and that, then you can just wind it by hand. So I'm now, and if you ever need to unwind a ball, actually, Swifts are really good for this as well. Go back the other way, because I'm now going to do it with the ball winder. And that is going to wind it. It's called a ball winder, but most people call what comes off it a cake. And so there's my end. And remember to go through the guide. and into that notch. Okay, and then I can start winding like this. I usually just make sure, particularly when I'm using the little one, this is where you can potentially get a little bit tangled, is just getting it going at the top there. So just making sure it's sitting on that nicely. If you want to hold that with your hand, you can. And again, sometimes with the smaller one, that's helpful. The other thing with the smaller one is it's got a smaller sort of version of this disc here that stops the yarn going down. So you just got to look out sometimes that your yarn hasn't slipped between the disc and the cog. I've had it before where it's kind of, particularly when you're getting to the end of the skein, it's just gone through there and between the teeth. And so just keep an eye is the main thing I would say, because you can just quite happily be winding as quick as you can, looking out the window at the lovely snow, and then you don't realise you've got in a tangle. So the main thing, as I said, is to just keep an eye, particularly if you're using one of these ones that's behaving itself. This one's a bit more reliable. So there we go. So I'm not going to make you listen to me winding this entire skein. So come back and it'll be done. There you go. You might have just seen I just caught that thread at the end just to stop it going off and doing whatever it wants and potentially getting a bit tangled in there. Just fed it onto the ball, and then all you need to do is just lift it off and that's it. It's done. Okay, so you can hopefully see that's a bit more efficient than doing it by hand. But yeah, if you don't have all this gubbins, doesn't matter. You can still use yarn that comes in a skein. Just please, please, please wind it into a ball first.